Good afternoon. I'd like to call the Subcommittee on Procurement and Open Government, the General Laws. We have take the roll, please. We have a quorum present. Thank you. We have a couple of bills to hear this evening. First, we have HB 1590 by Delegate Kent.
Thank you so much for letting me introduce 1590. This has come around again. We did a little bit of changes to it, but in essence, 1590 would allow for minors participating in a program facilitated by a state agency. So we're talking DEQ, VMRC, VIM, CWR, those type of agencies that have a internship that the minor's personal information could be withheld. It would not withhold anything regarding the program, how many students are participating, the results of any program. We're just trying to withhold the personal information of that student participating in the state-run agency. So I hope we could get your support on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Kent. Didn't we see this bill last year?
Yes, ma'am, and it was submitted to FOIA Council.
Mm-hmm. And have they ruled on it or said anything about it?
They said it was awesome. No, they haven't. I don't know what they said. We haven't heard anything back, but we wanted to introduce it again just to make sure that it can combine. And if FOIA Council did rule on it during this time, that it could move forward. Because it's super top line. The population that you're affecting is very small because we do say minors. So it really would just put 18 and under. So we're really talking about high school kids. A lot of your big internship programs are college students. They would not be affected. And so the population is very, very tiny that we think that this would affect, but wanted to secure that personal information from those folks.
So, Madam Chair.
Delegate Simon.
So, I'm sorry, as chairman of the FOIA Council, we did have an agenda early in the year, and I think what may have happened is that we may have said that we table this, and with the idea that it might be referred to the FOIA Council, but I don't know that the chairman's letter was ever actually generated. I would say to new members of the House, sometimes when we have something that happens in subcommittee and somebody tells you they're going to send a letter, it's generally the patron's sort of responsibility to follow up and make sure that that happens. Because as I recall, I don't recall, we did have a conversation about bills that had been referred to FOIA Council, which I chair, and I think there had been some conversation about this bill, but as I recall, the staff had never actually received a letter referring it. And so I do know that, this is another in a long list of exceptions. We've had a lot of conversation at the FOIA Council about whether we want to continue to add exceptions without sort of a full vetting. So I think given that this hasn't changed at all from a bill that was tabled last year and we haven't gotten the feedback for whatever reason from the staff of the FOIA Council, at the appropriate time, I would maybe recommend that we table this. Again, if there wants to be a letter to the FOIA Council, I think that the patron would need to make sure you follow up and make sure that actually happens. And then the FOIA Council could take a look at this issue and see how it fits in with all of our other exceptions.
Chair, I did speak to some folks this summer regarding it because I was anticipating it being FOIA Council and being reviewed. So I did have a couple of conversations this summer anticipating that it was there. So and that it was in for review with FOIA Council. I just hadn't gotten a ruling yet from them. But happy to do whatever obliges the committee.
I see Mr. Gernhardt, who's the executive director of the FOIA Council, is here, and he seems to be shaking his head. So maybe he can tell me if my recollection's accurate, or again, as chairman, I think I would know if we were looking at a bill. But can you sort of confirm for us that this one never actually made its way all the way to the FOIA Council?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
And Delegate Simon, we did not get a letter. Yeah, I do recall that someone, I think, verbally stated at the committee that there would be a letter, but we never got it. So we did not get it referred to the council. Okay. Sorry.
Thank you. Any comments from folks?
It wouldn't be the first time I had a number of bills, and I learned early on that if the chair is going to consider a letter or whatever, it's something you kind of need to follow up on and,
yes, sir.
Sometimes write the letter and stick it in front of the chairman.
Yes.
Delegate O'Rourke shaking his head yes too. So
okay.
again, I understand there's probably some confusion about this, but I think we find ourselves, unfortunately, here a year later, probably in the same posture we were a year ago.
Okay.
But maybe this time, again, having had that experience, you'll make sure that we follow up. But I don't guarantee that and again, there's one final thing. I know this is sort of editorial, but and I think Delegate Orrock agrees with me too. The subcommittee can suggest that might happen, but ultimately it's the discretion of the chair as to whether he thinks that it ought to go there or not. So what we can do here, the subcommittee, is we can table it. We can tell you that we could certainly mention to Delegate Bulova that part of the reason for tabling it was to give the FOIA counsel a chance to look at it. But it's up to him ultimately, or a motion of the full committee, to actually direct a letter be sent.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So, Madam Chair, I would move that we lay this bill gently on the table.
Recorded vote. Delegate Kent, your bill is laid gently on the table, 5-2.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Delegate Orrock,
Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee.
1789.
1789, if the subcommittee would indulge me and give your attention, I'm going to ask for an amendment to the measure. I would like to explain it, and then I would like the bill to go by for the day. And the premise being I want to make the amendment so we get it in the proper form, explain it so the stakeholders will hear why it's here, and hopefully then approach me in my office to work out language that be agreeable to all, and then come back before the subcommittee, and I'll make the pledge to the subcommittee. If we don't have a consensus, then it'll just stay by, and that'll be the end of it. So with that, if the subcommittee will indulge me, I would ask for an amendment on line 15. After A, and staff has this language already, strike public body and insert local government, markedly narrowing the scope of the measure.
Madam Chair, I move the line amendment.
Second.
Right. Thank you. Madam Chairman, members of the committee, procurement process, local government, any of the public bodies can reject all the bids right now summarily. But if they do, they have to start back over in the process, and that takes time. The circumstance we're trying to address, and this was brought to me by a couple of folks in local government, was we've got to get a situation where local government has local transportation funds at their discretion. That's advertised as part of the budget process, so the local community knows there's a pot of money for road building. And then they prioritize the projects they anticipate being able to use those monies for. And the specific case that was brought to my attention was a circumstance where the county needed to do some turn lanes into a subdivision. They know how much they cost because the local Wawa had been built recently, and as a part of the proffer, the Wawa had to put in the turn lanes, and they know how much the contractor charged the Wawa, and that was roughly $1 million, and the lowest bid for the county to get the same work was over $3 million because they knew how much money was in the pot. And so this is just to try and bring in a circumstance whereby the language of this bill is once permissive to local government. If they do it, they've got to announce it as a part of the bid process, that this is part of the criteria. Local government's got to figure out what the normal private sector cost of a project would be. And then that sets a criteria whereby if a bid comes in under, and there was no magic number to 50% over, but if it comes in under whatever they advertise as their cap over, then if it comes in, that's it. Deal done, project's gone. If it's not, they could reject them all for that reason and reopen the process. But then the development community or the contract community would know this is why they were rejected, and we need to make our bids lower if we want to get this work. So that's what the bill is attempting to do. It's a problem we've had at all levels of local government. Whenever we float transportation bond issues, what happens to the cost of a transportation road project? It goes up because there's more money there. And it's just try and bring some means in there to work between the capitalism, which I'm a total support of with the contractor community, and being good stewards of the public funds to get projects built. So that's all I'm trying to do with that explanation. Unless there are any questions, Madam Chairman, I would indulge a motion to go by for the day.
Thank you. And I believe we had one more line amendment.
Yeah, so, Madam Chair, I think to accomplish what the patron would like, he made the amendment on line 15, but also on line 17, we see the word public body. And so I think
Yes.
we would also want to change the word public body on line 17 to read
Yes.
local government.
Good
Is that a
catch. Thank you.
Friendly amendment? It wasn't mine, it was council's, but I'm happy to articulate it. So I move the second line amendment. Second.
Well, yeah, we'll leave it that way. We have to rework it, but that's good for now, yeah.
Questions from other members of the
Yeah,
committee?
Madam Chair.
Delegate Simon.
Oh, sorry, on the substance of it, right? I guess my question is, so right now it says an invitation to bid, a request, or other solicitation may be canceled or rejected. And then the reasons have to be made a part of the contract file. And then the only reason that you can't cancel or reject a bid is to avoid awarding it to a particular responsive or responsible bidder. So I guess my question is, what does this language do? I mean, I don't know that this actually adds anything to the process. They can already cancel their contract. All they have to do is articulate any reason that's not to avoid this particular contract because we don't like them, and they can cancel anyway. So if it's because it's too expensive, they can just say it's too expensive. We don't want to do it.
The hope on the local government officials that brought this to me is that with this in the law where they can cancel for that over the cap reason, it will cause the bids to come in lower on the front end so that the $5 million they've got to spend that year, and they're hoping to do 6 projects, maybe they'll actually get 4 of the 6 done versus in the current circumstance, the bids are so high, they got 2 of the 6 done. So
I don't want to belabor us and keep us here later than we need to be since we're going to go by for the day.
you may not get it back again, Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee. But I do appreciate the question very
I
much.
would move to take it by for the day, but that doesn't guarantee that I'm going to vote for it if it comes back either.
No problem, no commitment.
We'll need to adopt the amendments before.
All right. So I move the 2 line amendments. You see all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the subcommittee. Have a good dinner.
thank you. That's no other business before the committee. We're adjourned. Thank you.